Sourdough loaf together step by step. The first thing we need to do is prepare our sourdough starter for baking. If you store your sourdough starter in the refrigerator, take it out the morning or afternoon before you want to make your dough and allow it to come to room temperature on the counter. If it's been in the fridge for quite a while without feeding it, you may want to feed it 1 or 2 days in a row to strengthen it back up before baking. Right before going to bed, we're going to feed the starter to bulk it up. To a large jar, much larger than what you've been using for your regular sourdough feedings, add 25 grams of sourdough starter, 100 grams of water, and 100 grams of bread flour. Mix these all together, cover loosely, and allow the starter to rise overnight on your counter for 8 to 9 hours. You can take the rest of the starter from your original jar and add it to your discard jar in the fridge. The next morning, your starter should have at least doubled in size and be very bubbly on the sides and the top. Ideally, you want to make bread with your starter when it's at its peak. This means that the top of the starter in the jar is still dome-shaped and not beginning to fall back down on itself. If your starter has just begun to fall, it's still okay to use, but you don't want to use it if it has completely fallen after feeding. Let's make the dough. To a large mixing bowl, add 200 grams of your active sourdough starter. Next, add 750 grams of water. I like to warm my water to about 85 degrees Fahrenheit before adding it because I get my water cold from the fridge. Then mix the starter and water until most of the starter is dissolved into the water. Then add in 22 grams of salt and give that a quick mix. Finally, add in 1,000 grams of bread flour. I measure this in grams, not kilograms, in order to be the most accurate. Mix all of these together until there are no dry areas of flour left. I like to use a dough whisk. After mixing, the dough will look like a mess at this point, but don't worry. Scrape the sides of your bowl with a silicone spatula and then cover the bowl with a damp towel and let it rest on the counter for 1 hour. When we fed our starter last night to prepare for baking, we made a total of 225 grams. We only used 200 grams for this recipe, so we're going to take some of that extra starter and feed it so that our starter can live on. Take 5 grams of your starter and add it to a clean jar, then add 25 grams of water and 25 grams of flour. Mix that all together, and you can either store on the countertop or the fridge, whatever your preferred feeding method is. Next, we'll start a series of 4 rounds of stretch and folds to build strength in the dough. Wet your hands before working with the dough to minimize sticking. To stretch and fold, reach your hands into the bowl on one side, grab the dough, stretch it up, and fold it over itself. Turn the bowl 90 degrees and repeat on the next side. Stretch and fold all 4 sides of your dough. Make sure you're not stretching the dough so far that you're tearing it. After stretching and folding all 4 sides, cover your bowl with a damp towel and let it rest on the counter for 30 minutes. Perform the second set of stretch and folds the exact same way you did the first. You'll notice with each round of stretch and folds that the dough is becoming smoother and more put together. You also may start to notice some little bubbles forming on the surface of the dough. After stretching and folding, cover your dough and rest for another 30 minutes. For the third and fourth round of stretch and folds, I like to do what's called a coil fold. This is basically the same as the stretch and folds that I show you before, except you're curling the dough up under itself rather than stretching and folding on top of itself. So I like to pick up the dough from both sides and tuck the edges under themselves. Once you've done this on one side, spin the bowl 90 degrees and repeat on the next side. I like to do this a couple of times around until the dough won't really stretch anymore. If you prefer, you can stretch and fold the dough again, just like I showed you in the first 2 rounds. After you're done with your coil fold, cover the dough and rest for another 30 minutes.